Make sure I tap on my little things. Good morning, y'all. Hey, 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 good morning, good morning, good morning. Hello. Hey, Gina. Hey, Sonia. Hey, everybody. How's everybody doing? Good morning, good morning. Sorry about that. I'm just in the message real quick. How's everybody feeling? Good morning. Go ahead and greet your cousins as you're coming in. Good morning, Cece. Good morning, Sonia. Uh, good, good morning, everybody. How are you guys feeling? That's a true, honest question. How are you feeling? How are you doing this morning? Hey, May. Hey, Chef Jazzy. How's everybody doing? Um, yes, all of the replays are posted afterwards. So if you're unable to attend the entire class, no worries. There'll be a replay. Good morning, YouTube. Good morning, Facebook. Good morning, TikTok. And good morning, Instagram. As you're coming in, I want you to do me a favor and make sure that you're greeting your cousins. And then also do me another favor and make sure that you share the live. Today, we're going to get right into it because as promised and as mentioned, I have with us today a couple of guests. My first guest is going to be my friend who today we're talking about grief, right? Hey, Dad, good morning. Good morning. We're talking about grief and in a sense that I want everyone to know, you know, that you're not alone in this. And many of you know that my mom, I call it, she blew this popsicle stand, right? She blew this popsicle stand on August 15th and life will never be the same. And as I'm adjusting to this new life with her being, you know, not here in the present, I want to make sure that as I live my life out loud, good morning, David, that I'm doing it in a healthy manner, healthy for me. And in essence, I can give y'all a healthy version of what I exude. You see what I'm saying? And so today is going to be really good. I think that we're going to help a lot of people. And so make sure that you're sharing the live and that you are inviting those. And we're not just talking about grief in a sense of losing someone. We're talking about grief of like a marriage or a relationship, grief of a career. And so we're talking about how coping with grief overall is going to work. So let me get the morning song done. And once we get the morning song done, I'm going to bring on my friend Joe first. And we'll start there. Y'all ready? Y'all ready? All right. Hello, 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 and how are you? Mighty fine, mighty fine, mighty fine, and you are too. Hello, 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 and how are you? Mighty fine, mighty fine, mighty fine, and you are too. 'Cause period. Yesterday I had a meeting yesterday, like a real corporate meeting, and I had everybody doing that. 'Cause period. And they was like, okay. So my friend that I'm gonna bring on, his name is Joe. And I'll let Joe tell you a little bit of his story, but just in brief, Joe lost his daughter. It's been a year now, I believe. And hey, Joe.
Hey,
how are you?
I'm good. I got caught up trying to buy a badge.
Oh, well, thank you. I see you. Joe, do you enjoy our morning song?
I heard all of it, yeah. And how are you? Hello. I love that song.
You know what's so funny is my mom used to sing that song to me and my sister in the mornings when she would wake us up to get us ready for school. And I thought she made the song up. My children told me later on, Mama, your mama was plagiarizing. Okay, she didn't make that song up. They said, I think Barney made that song up.
It might have been a Barney song, but she stole it.
But she stole it.
She embraced it and made it hers. So
Listen. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're talking a very, it could be weighty and heavy topic. We're talking grief and loss, right? And I know that this is something that you know familiar. And so I want to give you a chance to share your story. And then I'm going to bring on Someone, I just met him, but I've done my deep dive research, and he is the truth. And he comes from one of my good friends referred him to me, and we're going to unpack some things, and we're going to learn and grow together. But I want the people to really know, like, what your story is and how it can be relatable to them.
Well, thank you again for this, Dannella. First of all, I just want to thank you for the gift that God's placed on your life to help people and to lead people.
Yeah.
For you to dedicate this much time every day to this, to helping people, I pray 1,000 blessings for you. This has been amazing, not just watching, but just in my life. I've learned how to turn you on and put you in my ears and just finish and start my day and start getting my stuff together. I appreciate the anointing and the gift that's on your life.
Wow. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for this whole thing. And I don't want to call you a pastor, but the gift of God is on your life, and thank you for helping people. So last year, my daughter passed away at the age of 23. She and I had a special relationship. It's different than any other father-daughter relationship I've ever seen. We were really close. We were very, very, almost twins. She's just like me. She loves everything I love. We were, close from her birth until the last day. She was my best friend. And she suddenly passed away. And it broke me in places I didn't know existed. I do well. I'm a promoter. I'm an influencer. I got stuff going on. But I didn't know how much my life was wrapped up in being her father. That was 80% of me. And so when she passed away, of course you get busy and doing everything and planning things and getting stuff together. But we get a chance to really sit down and try to figure out who you are on the other side of that. I had no clue who I was. This money, this work, none of it mattered, because the pride of my life, the purpose of my life was being a great father to her. And anybody that think that you stop fathering and parenting a kid at 18 or 21 don't know anything about parenting. And it changes, because parenting to her at 2 is different than parenting her at 12, and at 22 it all changes. But she was just like my whole heart. And so I was, just even right now understanding what life is without that purpose, without that assignment on my life. And it's tough just trying to figure it out and navigate through it. But sometimes this grief could get so heavy because not just of missing her, but missing who I was. People wish me happy Father's Day, and I feel like a fraud sometimes, and I feel like, it's not right, but it has a job on me. But one thing I thank God for is that she left me with posts and love letters and text messages and videos and birthdays and Father's Days and long letters and posts of love letters that has really helped me through. Like, she expressed, like, this is my daddy, he's my best friend, he's the coolest dad, he got all these celebrity friends, we go backstage and kind of let she go crazy with it, but she just talked about how she see her friends don't have what she had, but that has helped me. And so people say, put your phone down, live in the moment, all that. No. Leave your people with something tangible, something that they can go back and look at and feel and read and experience, because you just never know when a thing happens.
That's so good. And my condolences. And we've talked about this. We've shared, a lot of conversations. And I remember, where we were when you called Rel, and it really made me think about when my sister passed at 18. My dad is on here. So, he can relate to what you're
God bless
talking
you.
about.
God bless you to him.
And my mom, and here's my other sister. My entire family's on here because unfortunately, grief is not something that's new to us, right? My mom, again, passed away just a couple of months ago. I haven't even adapted a language for calling it a passing, right? I say, when she blew this popsicle stand, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how I'm learning to cope with an absence of her physical body being here. I want to say this because grief and losing someone can make you feel very isolated, right? It can make you feel like no one in the world understands or no one cares, right? And then you don't want to, as I call it, you don't want to bleed on people, right? I don't want to, every time you see me, I'm crying baby mama, I'm crying baby Dannella, you know what I mean? And so what I want to say before I bring on David is that you're not alone in this, you know what I mean? And I know that it can be paralyzing, right? Because you have to now figure out who you were. You don't realize that a lot of your life was engulfed in these special people, right? Like Saturdays, I'll be honest with you, Saturdays are hell for me. They are. And it's crazy because why would a Saturday of all days be hell? But I realized during the week, I can busy myself so much that I'm distracted from the reality. Saturday mornings, we're typically slowed down and I'm resting. And now it's like, oh, I really want to sit on the phone with my mama, but I can't. And so, and I love when you said, leave something tangible for your family. My mom left loads of text messages that she spread it throughout the world and loads of videos. And so I'm very grateful that I can just pull up, my phone and pull up a video, a FaceTime video from, where I screenshot. And I do have those things, but there are people who don't have those things. And so what David Kessler is here, he's going to do is he's going to help us navigate and understand what grief, is and how we can process and move along with it, right? So he's the author of 6 books, including his latest best-selling book. It's called Finding Meaning, The 6 Stages of Grief. He's the co-author of 2 books with Elizabeth Ross. He has a new online model of grief called Tender Hearts. David Kessler is one of the world's foremost experts on grief and loss. His experiences have taught him the secrets to living a happy and fulfilled life. What I love the most is when we were doing our pre-interview, David said, well, I'm very familiar with this because I lost my mom when I was 13. And just recently, I lost my youngest son. So it's not like he's just giving us erroneous information or things that he just thinks, right, will work. He's actually someone who, actually knows what this feels like. And so he can empathize and sympathize both. And then he can give us information, tools, and resources to back it up. There he is. Hello, David. How are you?
Hi there. It's so good to be with both of you. And Dannella, thank you for doing this. Just thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I host, as Joe was saying, I host class every morning, and these are our cousins, right? This is our family, and I want us to grow together. I want us to learn, and even if you aren't familiar or you're not one that's lost someone, you haven't lost a career or a loved one, or you haven't lost a relationship, maybe you can learn how to support someone who has. Right?
So true, so true. If I could, I always like to start with, Joe, if you could tell us your daughter's name, her first name.
Her name is Jayla.
Jayla. And Dannella, tell us your mom and sister's name.
My mom's name was Sandy, and my sister is Tamika.
My mom was a Sandra, so right there along with her. So,
my mom was a Diane, and she was another close
person.
Yes,
and
but
I like to do that because people talk about losses. These aren't just losses. These are amazing people that walk this earth with us. And everyone who's on, if they want to put a name of a loved one in the chat, that'd be great. Because it's important we still see these people. They matter to us. I always like to start there. And Joe, I resonated so much with what you said as a grief expert, but more than that, just as a bereaved father. You know, I do not stop parenting my son just because I can't see him. You know, parenting is something that goes on forever. Never quit thinking about my mom. And, you know, there's this outside world that tells us, move on, get over it. And I want to go, my loved one was not a cold or a flu that I'd get over. These are people who matter to me and continue to matter to me.
Yeah. That's beautiful. You know, that is true. I hear people say, okay, well, life goes on. I remember saying to my mom one time when my sister passed away, and it's been 22 years, and my mom would cry endlessly. And again, my dad is on, and my other sister is on, and my mom would cry just all the time, just always, you know, she would always be crying. And I'm like, Mama, you have to realize you have other children. It feels like your life stopped just because, you know, Tamika passed away. But what about us, you know? And that was in my immaturity and not understanding the process. And now I'm more careful about, you know, how I approach someone that's grieving. I have a question. What do you think is the best way to support someone that is grieving the loss of a loved one?
Well, I love what you just said, because that really is my mission. Because people like her, your mom, didn't know how to do this. You know, I always say, I think I'm teaching people what our great-grandparents knew. And it's how to be with people in grief and how to talk to them and help them feel less alone. So the first thing is to see one another, see their pain. You know, we many times want to do what I call bright siding or give people positive toxicity. You know that, oh, but they're in a better place, and oh, it's okay, and, you know, don't be sad. They wouldn't want us to be sad. I'm like, they might. I don't know. They might. A little sad.
Yeah.
You know, that's okay. And I think we have to see the pain, and we have to understand, and this is such a huge distinction for me, the human response versus the spiritual response. If someone says to me, you know, it's so hard, my spouse died, I sit across the table with an empty chair, or my child died, or my parent died that I saw every Sunday dinner. If I say to them, oh, but they're always with you and she's right there in your heart, I missed seeing their pain.
Yes.
And I gave them the spiritual response before I gave them the human.
Yes.
And I can tell you, I have a friend who probably 2 months after my own son died, she called me, and bless her soul, she's written books on Jesus. She's amazing. And she called me up and she said, how you doing? And I said, I'm so angry. And she said to me in that call, do you want the human response or the spiritual? And I went, I want the human first, then the spiritual. And she said to me, I hear your anger. She goes, I'm surprised you're not breaking furniture. And I was like, she gets me. She gets how angry I am that I could break a couch. She gets me. After we talked about my anger, she then said, are you ready for the spiritual? And I said, yes. And she said, David can't die. David can't die. David's eternal. And I love the idea of us getting to know a human response versus the spiritual and starting with the human. Because we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
I love that. I love that, because so often I hear, and Joe, you may hear this a lot too, be strong. You got to be strong you got to be strong. And it's like, what does that even mean? And so do you want me to fake it till I make it? But what if I never make it? You know, my sister I was 18 when she passed away. And I'm 41 now, and I dream of her every single night. And it's like, you want me to be strong, but I haven't learned to do that, right? And I don't even know if it's fair to say be strong. What does that even mean? You know what I mean? And so I
Be
love
strong
that.
sometimes sounds like don't have feelings. And I'll tell you, as a man, you really get be strong.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know, when that's why I'm in this work. My mom died when I was 13. There was a whole shooting. It was one of the first mass shootings in the U.S. And the only advice I got was be strong.
Wow.
Doesn't help.
It does not help. Because it's saying put your pain aside. The truth with losing somebody so close, almost like with a knife in your arm, but they can't remove it. So you walk around and you make adjustments, and you sleep on a certain side of your body now, and you watch when you walk through doors because it's a pain that's never going to go anywhere. It's just stuck there. You to move on from that. One of the best. Let me tell you something. I work in the gospel industry too, and I armor bearer for some of the biggest pastors and bishops. So when my daughter passed away, I got all these calls, all these big bishops, all these theological understandings, all these anointings and purpose and prayers. But the call that really caught me, friend Lil Rel. Sweet face. I'm just not gonna do that.
Your phone, your sound is going in and out a little bit, Joe.
Can y'all hear me now?
Okay, much better. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So I got all these calls from all these pastors, all these bishops from all over the country. They had all this spiritual context and all that stuff, but the most effective call I got was from Lil Rel, who was a friend of mine for years. And he called me and his voice is shaking. He's broken up. And I'm trying to be, you okay, Joe? Yeah, I'm good, man. He said, man, this is messed up. This is so bad. It's like, he said, are you okay? And I said, you know, I'm good, you know, whatever. Just trying to be man with a man and have that experience. And he just told me, you don't have to do that with me. Like, it's okay if you're not okay. And I've heard that 1,000 times, but I've never heard it from a friend that I've shared so many moments and experiences with. And it was monumental and almost life-changing that it gave me permission to have my human experience with this great loss. That it's okay if you don't show up. It's okay if you don't be who you are. It's okay if you don't go to work. It's okay if you don't eat. It's okay that you're not okay. Because people say, you know, be strong. But they don't know the experience I had getting up my bed this morning. How tough it was to roll over and cut a light on and put a pants leg on one at a time to navigate through this experience. But I just thank God for that one moment. It was the day after she passed away. And he called me. And it helped me to give me permission to not be this strong leader of the family, leader of my community, leader of my friend circles. And now I got to portray this strength and this strongness. No, you could be weak and you could be transparent and you could be open and you could be hurting and you could cry. And it's okay for us to have these conversations. And I thank God for that one thing, because he understands his own personal grief. I thank God that I had my friend in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's so important there because, you know, we have to have new definitions of what strong and resilient looks like. Everyone's like, oh, someone's so resilient and so strong. And I tell people, you know, sometimes the face of resilience is the one who's out there carrying on and doing it. But I said resilience is also crying in bed all day.
Yes.
Resilience is you can't get out of bed some days. Sometimes that's the strength. And, you know, people will say, let me remind them of the gratitude. And I say, people early on in grief don't need to hear about gratitude.
Nothing.
They need to talk about wins. And when I talk about wins, I go, getting out of bed, just like you said, is a win. Showing up for work is a win. Getting your kids to school is a win. Just functioning is a win. Gratitude will come later. And, it's interesting. You asked me about what other people should do. We mentioned, my website's grief.com, and I get to see the analytics behind the website. 3 a.m., the most visited page, is the best and worst things to say to people in grief. Wow. And here's the thing. We don't know what to say. So I like to tell people, first of all, quit trying to find the right words. Yes. There aren't none. There aren't none. In fact, you can say, I can't find any words. There's not even enough words to reach the pain, but I just want you to know, as my friend, as my family, I sit here with you. That's all we need to hear, is that you're with us. The other thing is, don't begin a sentence with "at least." At least they're not suffering anymore. At least it was quick. At least you don't have to deal with that addiction. At least mental health issues are over. Forget starting a sentence with the word "at least." Wow. It's not going to feel good to someone in grief.
That's good. You know what I think is overlooked the most? I think we lost Joe. We'll grab him back in a second. Is the waves that come along with grieving. I think it's not talked about. I think it's discovered. And after my mom blew this popsicle stand, I'm still trying to find the words, but that's how I like to say it.
But that's okay if that's your words. You don't ever have to change those words.
Yeah. Well, good. Thank you for that, because that's how I see it.
You don't ever have to change those words.
So after that, what's interesting is my mom, she blew this popsicle stand, and 2 weeks later, I became engaged. And so a lot happened, and some days I'm really, some days I'm really up, right? I am celebrating my wins, like, okay, I got the girls to school on time. Okay, today's a good day, the sun is shining, but people are like, well, Dannella, like, you have all of these good things that are happening. You just got engaged, and your life seems to be up and up, as if they don't make space for me to grieve, as if it's an abnormality for me to be in a moment that, you still lost your mama. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And it's so interesting. How I like when you say celebrate the little wins.
The little wins.
The little wins. The little wins. The other thing I think is important for us to realize, and it goes back to that human versus the spiritual, is they physically died. That is the truth. And it's important we don't let death have any more power than it already has. Death doesn't have the power to end a relationship. Death doesn't have the power to end our love. And it's important that we understand we still have connections with these people. We still like to hear their name. We still like to talk about them. People like, all right, everyone, here's Joe, here's David, here's Daniel. Don't mention their mom or their kids. And it's like, no, you can mention my mom. You can mention my kids. I don't like hearing stories about my son. I'm sure you like hearing stories about your mom or your daughter.
Yeah, I do. I love it. And I do feel like people sometimes, they will stray away from it because they feel like, oh, it's too sensitive. Or maybe they think that they're being, they're watching what they say because they don't want to hurt my feelings, or they don't know what to say.
Yeah. And the thing is, I hear people go, oh, my friend's coming over for this or that. Should I mention their loved ones? I don't want to remind them in case they forgot. I'm like, no one forgot. No one forgot. And then once in a while, someone will go, oh, all right, I can talk to them. I can mention their loved ones. I said, absolutely. They'll come back and they'll tell me, David, I did what you said, but then they cried. I made them cry. I said, no, you didn't. You became a safe person for them to cry with. They were crying already. You just got into their safe circle is all that happened.
Somebody, my therapist asked me, what do it feel like? I said, it's like being on the phone, having a business conversation, but the TV is playing in the background, even though I'm not paying attention to it, I can still audibly understand what's happening with it.
Yeah.
That's how my daughter's memory is with me every single day. It never goes away. So nothing you could say remind me of her because it's a constancy. It's a weight. But I feel like in honoring her memory and honoring her existence and what she meant to me, I think she deserved that much thought.
Yeah.
I think she deserved that much
Absolutely.
connection and idealism. And so if it hurts sometimes, so be it.
Yeah.
It's a part of life. But I'm honor her in that system no matter what. She's always going to be a forefront thought in my mind. And maybe I might do things through the filter of her presence or non-presence or whatever it is. But I'm glad I have that to filter through. And I'm okay with it. I'm learning how to be okay with that.
Yeah.
Now, I have my friends be so jealous, be so scary to even talk about their kids now. Now, that's the problem I'm starting to have. They don't want to talk about the complaining about their daughter at school doing something wrong or any of that. And so they're dealing with their own guilt with not wanting to tell me stories about their children. How do I give them permission to, like, come on, man, we got to have regular conversations?
I think that is it, to say we have to be real. We can't have a real relationship if we talk about my daughter or son who's died and you never bring up your kids anymore. That's not a real relationship. So we got to bring it up. And maybe it will be hard for you to complain about something small in my presence, but that's actually something in you going on. There's a part of you that knows, oh, maybe this complaint I have about homework isn't as big as I think it is.
That's good.
Oh, that's good.
That's good.
Yeah.
I have a question. Go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to just talk for a moment because we talked about in the beginning all kinds of grief. And I want to mention that for people who are watching, because grief is this little small word that means so much.
And it covers so much, yes.
Covers so much. It's, of course, a loved one dying, but it's also a breakup, a divorce, a betrayal, a job loss, all those things. So I wanted to just share for a moment about that because I think people sort of don't think that those things are grief. And the reality is they are. They are. And one of the things I always say is it's always a death. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Obviously, we know a death of a loved one. But a breakup is a death of that relationship. Divorce is the death of that marriage. A job loss is the death of that job with those people in that place.
Yes.
And we make the mistake sometimes of trying to compare. Who has the worst loss? Is it a death of a child? Is it the death of a mother? Is it your job loss when you can't provide for your family? I always say the worst loss is yours.
Mm.
The worst loss is the one you're going through. And when we try to compare, we're in our mind, we're not in our heart. So I tell people, let go of comparisons. That doesn't serve anyone to compare.
It's so bad.
I love this. I love this because I did some research, and you have a topic that I wanted to introduce, and it was how our mind works in grief, right? And a lot of times it's our mind that will configure, and it will create these ideas, and it will cause us to be it will sit deeper in something than we should, right? Even when it comes, I was married for 17 years, right? I'm divorced now for 6, almost 7, and that's a death to that relationship that involved my children. And that's it feels like a hard death because this is a person that's still walking and roaming this earth that you could have access. That's rejecting us every day. And so I would love to talk about like how our mind works when we are talking about grief.
Yeah. So here's a couple of things to think about. There's always the event that happens, the breakup, the death, and there's the stories that our mind makes up. it's a little like pain from loss is inevitable. You know, I can't take away the pain of anyone's loved one dying or a divorce I can't, it's not even mine to take away. Why would I take the pain away? Suffering is the optional part. Suffering is what our mind does. So we've talked about death of a person. Let's go to relationships for a moment. You have a divorce or a breakup. That's bad enough. There's pain there. But then your mind tells you a story. You know, one of the big stories people tell me all the time is someone breaks up with them and they go, the worst part is that was my soulmate. So they have the breakup of this person, the divorce or the betrayal, and it was my soulmate. I have to remind them that's a story. I say, I have a different story. I think your soulmate is the one that stays, not the one that leaves. So for us to think about, sometimes those stories don't serve us. Really? You had one soulmate and they broke up with you and that's the rest of your life? No. Your soulmate is the one that's on the way to you, not the one leaving you.
That's good. I like that.
Dave,
So
let me ask you this
those
question.
lies don't help us. I mean, many times after a loved one dies, we might say, oh, I could have been more this, I could have been more that. Of course, we're all human. We're imperfect on this earth. That's why we're here.
I want to ask a question, Dave.
Yeah.
And when I experienced my loss, I'm very angry with God. Like, I've served you. I've done everything. I've canceled. I've canceled concert promotions to go do things in your glory. You know, why would you do this? And so I was really angry. At my daughter's funeral, I looked down. She had sisters. Before I married her mom, my mom had children, and they wasn't always the nicest to her. And Holy Spirit boldly, while I'm in the middle of mad, tell me get up at the funeral and speak and release people of their guilt. How thin of a line, and I thank God that when my daughter passed away, I had no guilt. I was there every second of the day. I did everything. I was everywhere. I loved her. I hugged her. I kissed her. I gave her all the information, so I had zero guilt. But everybody didn't have that same experience as me. Some of her friends didn't have the experience of being able to say bye to my daughter without guilt. How thin of a line is grief and guilt?
No, great question. So, first of all, I love that you are saying you are angry with God. I always tell people, they're like, I shouldn't even think it. I say, oh my goodness, God is big enough to handle your guilt.
Yes.
God is big enough to handle your anger. God loves you through your anger. God loves you through your pain. And I completely get how you would feel that way. I mean, I felt the same way. I was like, God, I have been a grief expert helping people for years, and now you take one of my sons? Why? And, you know, for me, what I came up with there is God didn't take my son. God was with me when my son died. That's just what I came to, and everyone comes to a different reality. But guilt is often a companion with grief. And, you know, sometimes the guilt might not be true. Sometimes it might be true. Maybe you could have been there more. Maybe you realize you should have been there more. So a couple of things I tell people to do. Number one, you can still apologize to someone even though they've died. You can still say to them, I am so sorry. And one of the things I teach people is what I call living amends. And a living amends is this. Let's say maybe you called me a lot, I didn't call you back, and then you died. And I'm like, oh, God, why didn't I pick up the phone? Why didn't I call back? The living amend is to you, the person who died, from here on out, the rest of my life, my living, breathing amends, my apology is when someone calls me, who's a friend, who's another person on this earth, I'm going to do my best to communicate as well as I can. And every time I communicate, every time I take a call, it's a living, breathing apology to you, my loved one who's died.
Wow. Wow, that's great. Okay.
You know, sometimes people they never said I loved you. You know, make a living amends. Every time I'm with someone and I love them, I'm going to say it in honor of that person who died.
What if someone dies and you still have issues with them? You had unresolved things. You loved them dearly, but you had unresolved conversations. You had conversations that never was had that you should have had. How do we deal with that?
You know, we usually die with unfinished business. It's a myth that we get to say everything and wrap our lives up in a neat bow. You know, and that's true of breakups and everything else. We don't get to wrap things up in a neat bow. And, you know, sometimes to accept that is the reality. That is who they were in that moment. That is who we are. And I say to people, do your best to mature now and learn now. And I say, let me tell you, where they are doing their best to learn more and mature too.
This is so good. I want to open up for questions. So those of you who have questions, there's a little box that looks like a question mark with a circle around it. If you see it, just tap it, type in your questions, and we'll get to as many questions as possible because, again, this is a safe space, and I want you guys to get what you need while we have this open dialogue and this open floor.
I also want to give people some resources, too.
Yes, please.
So, a few things. If you had a parent die, I have a free series that you can find at, I believe it's lossofaparent.com. Lossofaparent.com. I think that's right. If I'm wrong, someone will correct me in the chat. The other one, like for people like Joe and I, who have had a child die, there's another one I have called parentforever.com. That's a free video series about siblings. Parentforever.com is important. And, you know, I tell people, I bought new tires a while back. I got a maintenance plan on my tires in case I hit a pothole. If you're in grief, you're going through the worst. If a loved one died, you're going through the worst time of your life probably. Get some support. I have online groups called Tender Hearts. I have many, many things for people to utilize to really help. It's very important we get help out there.
That's so good.
There we go. Loss of a parent, parent forever. Oh, grief, suicide. Oh, that's another good one. Another free series. You know, people are dealing with death by suicide, and we have to understand that when you're dealing with someone who's died by suicide, here's what science is telling us now. It's an illness in their mind. It's not a choice. You know, we have an old way that we were taught that suicide is a choice, or they should think differently, and you know, the reality is they probably tried desperately. You know, we got to be real about mental health. We just can't tell people to, you know, sweep it under the carpet. We got to be real.
Walk it off. No.
Yeah, you can't walk it off. You got to be real.
Yeah. This is so good. It looks as if, I don't know, the question box isn't working. So you guys can just go ahead and just maybe put your questions in the comment section and we'll grab them as they go. I saw some questions come up, but when I tapped the little thing, it wouldn't show me the questions. But as people are gathering their questions, I want to say a lot of times after you've lost something, whether it be a marriage, a relationship, a career, I feel like I have experience in all these areas, right? And you're grieving it and you're reconciling and you're learning to now live life and function in these spaces. Like, how is it? I hear a lot of people saying, well, how do I find meaning? Where do I go from here? Like,
Yeah.
Joe, as you said, you didn't
Yeah.
realize how much your life was wrapped into your daughter. And for me, I didn't realize how much my life was wrapped into my mama, or my career that I have, and or my past marriage. And it's like, well, how do you now rebuild? And is it a rebuilding? Like, do you recreate? Like, what happens, and how do you find meaning?
Yeah, it's interesting. Someone put in the chat talk about the sixth stage. So, as you mentioned, I got to work with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who did the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And she'd be the first to tell you those aren't linear, they're messy. You do them any way you can. And I know when I got to acceptance, the idea of just accepting that my son's gone, that's it, just accept it, that wasn't enough. I needed more. I needed to find meaning. And meaning, that's why I call it the 6th stage of grief. Meaning, people think, oh, you mean I start a foundation, I do a 5K walk in honor of my loved one? I'm like, those things are nice, but that's not everyone. What can we all do? We can find little moments. Name the little moments of meaning. I'll tell you, Dannella, Joe, right now, there's people here we're helping, we don't even know. That's what makes this so meaningful to me. Like, this is a meaningful moment.
Yeah.
The other part I tell people about meaning is, Dannella, a part of you died with your mama.
Mm.
And a part of your mama lives on in you. The same with Joe, a part of your daughter, you died with her, and there's a part of her that lives on in you. So these parts of our loved one that lives on in us, what meaning can we find? What can you do to nurture the parts of your mama that lives on in you? That part of our daughter, that part of my son, that's part of the meaning we find.
I've learned to, I don't know if we got questions coming in or not.
Yeah,
Are
we did.
Okay. Go ahead, questions.
No, please, go ahead.
Someone just wrote, how do you deal with grief when you lose a baby as a stillborn? I got to tell you, it's very hard. Because that's what we call disenfranchised grief, where people go, oh, it's better it didn't grow up. Oh, it was a stillborn. Oh, and it's like, no, it's horrible. This is a baby you were connecting to, and it's just heartbreaking. So the world has got to realize miscarriage, stillbirth, SIDS, oh my gosh, heartbreaking, real grief. In my grief group every week, and by the way, it's like we mentioned, it's a new model, it's reasonable, and no one is ever turned away for lack of funds. We got 25 groups every single week. In those groups, we got a stillborn miscarriage group, we have infant death, we have death of a mom, death of a father, death of a child, death of a sibling, death of a spouse, addiction, fentanyl, faith, afterlife. We've got tons of groups because people need to gather in a safe place. So that's Tender Hearts. I'll make sure I click the link in the chat for that.
Thank you. Okay, there's a question I just saw. They said, how do you know if you actually have grieved? I feel like I've felt every emotion of losing my parents at 16, but I'm not sure if I actually processed the pain and emotions I felt or feel. That's good, because sometimes I feel like, am I grieving my mama the right way?
So here's the thing. People ask me, how long will I grieve? How long am I going to grieve my child? How long is she going to grieve her mom, her dad, their spouse? I always say, when people ask me, how long are you going to grieve? I always say, well, how long is the person going to be dead?
Right.
Because if they're going to be dead a long time, you're going to grieve a long time. Now, it doesn't mean you'll always grieve with pain. I think that's what confuses people, is they think grief means pain for your life. To me, the goal in grief is to eventually remember with more love than pain. But I'm never forgetting anyone. It's been decades since my mom died. Never forget.
That's good. I that's really helpful because sometimes it feels like I don't know if I'm grieving properly or if there's a way to properly grieve because I'm not always just in a ball of tears. You know, sometimes I'm really
Yeah.
happy, but I'm still missing my mama, you know, but I'm really, really happy. And it's a little confusing, right?
And this involves trust. Let me tell everyone here, all of us, everyone on this call, everyone we meet, everyone we know, we come from a long line of dead people. Like our ancestors knew how to do this. Our soul, our psyche, our body is built to take a number of hits this lifetime. We have it within us. Grief is organic. We don't need to teach it. We know it. It's our society that tells us to stop doing it, to quit thinking about them. That's the craziness, not us.
So crazy, so crazy. And I've learned a thing that I do, especially with my mom, who I was very, very close to, and now my daughter, is to honor them in the spirit of their character and personality. My mom was a cook, and she liked family gatherings, and she liked savory meals, and so I would just cook some savory stuff, and just make a pot roast with potatoes, and just enjoy it like I'm eating it with my mom. My daughter passed away. She was so silly. As a matter of fact, she was a bit morbid. Well, we both were very morbid the way we joke. But one of the things she said is she wanted people to get roasted at her funeral, like somebody I'm serious. So I had a Christian comedian do the service. It was very non-traditional. She loved gospel music and she loved funny. And so the comedian literally was talking about people, and we laughed and had fun. But I've learned to honor them in the spirit of who they were, in a way. So laughing and joking. Dannella, you know I'm crazy. You know, people see my post on Instagram. It's just all jokes. But that's the way my therapist told me that being funny is a cop-out sometimes and not dealing with your issues. But also, I just like to encourage people through humor. But honoring them through the spirit of who they were, like David said, some people might want you to grieve them and be sad and go through those experiences. My mother would kick me.
But not forever. Not forever.
Yeah, my mother would kick me down the stairs if I was immobile, not in a bed, cramped up and curled up and crying, and she would be so pissed at me, and my daughter would be too. And so to get up is to say, all right, y'all, I'm getting up and I'm honoring y'all with my day, and I'm gonna go get it because I know y'all wouldn't want me to do the opposite. And so having those experiences, be like,
Yeah, I love this because my 20-year-old really just kind of schooled me in this area. Someone told her, she said, someone told her, remember your grandmother, as such a kind and peaceful. She said, that ain't who my granny was. My granny was smart mouth. like she would give you the shirt off of her back, but she was sassy, she was smart mouth, and that's how I enjoyed my granny, and that's how I want to remember my granny, that. I don't want to make up this facade or adapt this new narrative about who she was, and now I'm trying to grieve in this falsehood. Like, I want to remember her like she was, right? And that's
in the fullness of who she was.
In the fullness of who she was. We'll take a couple of more questions, maybe two more, and then I'll let you guys get. This has been so good.
And let me just say, that thing right there that you just said is so important. We've all been to a funeral where maybe the preacher was stepping in and didn't know the person. And we come away going, it was a lovely funeral. It wasn't Frank who died, but it was a lovely funeral.
Right.
And that's just as true about grieving. People want to know, what's a good griever? A good griever is someone who's grieving authentically and real. And we remember our loved ones exactly as they are. No better, no worse, just them.
Yeah, I love that. Someone asked, how do they get out of isolation because they feel like grief has them isolated?
Yeah, so true. grief needs to be witnessed. You know, we've learned so much about trauma and grief, and you got to do it with other people. Now, people go, yes, but my friends don't want to talk about it. Join a grief group, whether it's mine, whether it's your church, whether it's at the local hospital. Join a group, because we find ourselves in each other's stories. We find our healing in each other. Groups are really powerful, because you have never, ever heard anyone answer the question, how did you heal? And they said, by myself. The truth is, the cruelest thing we can do to people is put them in isolation. Isolation doesn't heal. So we need to find other people.
I heard someone say that even when going through a divorce, they said, well, why did you move on? And it feels like you just, you keep yourself in a crowd. And their response was really powerful, I think. They said, well, I wasn't designed to go through this alone. And I think a lot of times people feel like when you're grieving, even a divorce, that you're supposed to shut up, just go inward and shut down, and you're to do it singular. He said, if I was to do it singular, I would have died.
In prison, they punish hard criminals. I mean, murderers and sociopaths, when they get in trouble, they put them by themselves.
Yep.
And it's the worst thing, because God says it's not good for man to be alone.
Exactly.
And so this isolation is almost more dangerous. Like they said that sitting down is the new cigarette. If you sit down too much, you're not moving. Isolation is just as bad as being, because I've isolated myself. Even though I'm a public person, I could be in a room full of people and be by myself.
Right.
Because now I feel guilty, David, because I don't want to put my grief on people. I want to talk about my daughter sometimes, but then I feel like I've overused that grief card, like it ran out. So I don't want to mention her.
It's true. We often feel that way. So 2 things I would say to that. There's a part of us that we are also, if we do that, and I feel that way too, if we do that, we're propagating a lie that grief ended on a certain day. And we, you and I, all of us, have to teach people how to grieve. When people say to me, what, you went to your son's grave? It's been 7 years still? I go, yeah, that is what grief looks like. And I say to them, I am happy, I am joyful, I am full of life, and I miss my son every day.
Yes.
I still grieve, I still go to the grave. This is what grief looks like.
Yeah, that's good.
I've not had a place, Dannella, to say, I miss my daughter every day.
Yes.
And just to hear him say that, and me to be able to say that to y'all is actually monumental, even in my process now.
Yeah.
I miss her every single day.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's okay, and that's fantastic, actually. I miss my mama every single day, and it literally, David, it's kind of strange, because although I know that she's not physically here, that does not stop me from doing this to go get my phone to want to grab it constantly. There's constantly a notion to want to grab my phone so I can call my mom, right? And that's just the process, and it's okay. I'm not trying to stop myself. I'm just going to let it do that until it does that, I really, really, really appreciate this conversation. You guys have been just like magnificent. I know that we've helped so many people. David, if you can give us some places and ways that they can find you and tap into what you're doing, I would love that. And then Joe, if you could share some information, because I know that you've helped some people. So let us know what you have going on and how we can tap into what you have going on.
So I can be found at grief.com. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook and all those places under I Am David Kessler. I also have a group called Tender Hearts, an online group for people who've had a loved one die. People from all around the world come on. And like I said, we've got great groups. We've got LGBTQ, we got people of color, we have, afterlife, we have all the different losses and people. So all kinds of things for people to choose from. And we also, you know, help people. That can be found at Tender Hearts Support. Hearts plural, tenderheartsupport.com. I also teach therapists and other people who want to find meaning how to turn their pain into purpose with a grief educator certificate program. I have free videos. They're in the chat now, but for those watching later, it's lossofaparent.com. If you've had a parent die, then if you're dealing with suicide, a loved one who died from that, griefsuicide.com, and another one called Parent Forever if a child or a sibling has died. And you know, it's really important we just reach out and find each other. Someone said, is this going to be saved? I think we're going to try to save it, so it'll be saved. So you can share it with your grief illiterate
Please.
family.
Yes. Thank you, David. Joe,
Absolutely.
tell us how to find you.
I just looked at Joe Global 1 on Instagram, but I do want to reiterate, Dannella, thank you for the spirit of your heart that you impart pieces of yourself every single day for the glory of God and for the people that follow you. I only pray and I decree and declare that today will be the first day of the best days of your life. That the blessings of the Lord will rest upon you, that angels will sit at the four corners of your home, and that God will protect you and keep you in every single way. I hope that there is an influx of blessings that come your way. And to the people that follow her, please, this is not about money. But when a person imparts in you and gives so much of themselves, you got to pour back into them. Even if it's not through money, but through prayers, through supplication, through fasting for her. She gives so much, she pour out so much every single day. And whoever replenish the poor. Consideration is another term for money. If you get her Zelle, get her Cash App. She didn't know I was doing this, I swear to God. But y'all be a blessing to her. She poured out so much. She's so transparent. I'm in Chicago, right? Dannella is engaged to one of my best friends. The city didn't understand who she was because she's just this pretty girl. And they didn't know her. I didn't know her. And then I spent the day with her. And I just said, y'all don't have a clue who this girl is. She's the country's most Mississippi, Jesus-loving person you would ever know. And she's exactly what my best friend needs. And I'm so glad you're connected. And I'm so glad that you're my friend. And I do pray that people will pour back into your ministry and into your life, and that they will also undergird you with prayer and keep you focused on what you're doing. Thank you for imparting and breaking off pieces of yourself for us. I love you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
I will say amen to that. And Danielle, the thing I want to say is I have all this grief knowledge, and if people like you don't give me a place to share it, it doesn't get out in the world. So thank you for being an amplifier of my work and to be an amplifier of love in the world and connection. Boy, we need it now more than ever. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate you both. I receive, all of your goodness. And what good am I to just be a vessel that never gives back, right? I believe that God has called me to be a conduit. And so it's never just for me. I'm not alone in all the things that I teach and all the things that I go through. I believe that God has called me to live a very public life so that I can be an example of hope, his goodness, and just encouragement. And so I really, really appreciate your time. I appreciate what you do in your work and what you do in your personal lives, because it literally pours onto the masses. So thank you. We must do this again, because there are some topics that we did not really thoroughly cover that I think are really important, and I would love to tap in. And so thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being a part of today's class. I hope that this fed your soul like never before. We're back every day. I'll see you guys on tomorrow where we talk about relationship again. Thank you, David. Thank you, David, and thank you, Joe. Thank you, cousins.
Thank you so much.
All right, love you guys. Bye.
Thank you.